Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric Entertaining Series, The Port Authority, where I weigh some of my favorite arcade games directly up against their home console counterparts. If you can't tell already, we're playing Dead or Alive, released both on the Sega Model 2 and Sega Saturn by Tecmo. It's basically the faster, flashier, more jiggly version of Virtua Fighter 2, and this might be a controversial opinion, but I enjoy Dead or Alive more than I enjoy Virtua Fighter 2, as far as both the Saturn and the Model 2 are concerned. But we're not here to talk about Virtua Fighter versus DOA, we're here to talk about DOA versus DOA on the Model 2 and the Sega Saturn. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But getting right into the comparisons, first on the Sega Model 2 side of things, there are two versions of this game, one that runs on the Sega Model 2A and one on the 2B. We're playing the 2B version of the game today, and this was just such a pretty game when it came out. Definitely had the Virtua Fighter 2 vibes going on, but it was doing its own thing visually, and it looks stunning here on Model 2. But the actual impressive thing is, compared to the Virtua Fighter 2 Port Authority, I would say that Dead or Alive translated better over to the Sega Saturn side of things. There's definitely going to be some reduced visual quality, and the frame rate isn't going to be as good as Model 2, but as far as the overall concept of what Dead or Alive is, the overall graphical capabilities, the backgrounds, and everything else, I just think it looks great on Saturn. As we move back over to the Model 2 original, you will see a slight color difference. Sega Model 2 always seems slightly darker than the Sega Saturn, but of course they're based on an entirely different hardware architecture and different monitors as well. Arcade games, more often than not, we're using obviously arcade monitors, which are going to be a different quality and do different things than your home television would. So that was always considered against when you would actually have your colorways chosen for the game. And moving over into the next stage on the Model 2 version, this is an area in which the arcade version has a clear advantage. Where underneath this pagoda you see those swinging wind chimes in the wind. Everything here looks absolutely incredible. I love the Sega blues, the reds on the ground. It is just such a pretty game. So let's go to a side-by-side comparison so we can talk about the differences in this stage. As far as the character models are concerned, their animations, their polygons are extremely close, but you're instantaneously going to notice that pagoda hanging overhead has been 100% removed here on Sega Saturn. It was just too much for the engine and the hardware to handle, so they took it out. And if I never showed you this and you never played the Model 2 original, you might not notice it's missing, but it is a fundamental difference between the two versions. But outside of that omission, I would say that Dead or Alive translates over to the Sega Saturn so well. And again, remember, the Model 2 was developed in conjunction with Lockheed Martin, the military contractor, and the Sega Saturn was just developed by Sega and meant to be able to be affordable in a home market. So to go from this to the Model 2 side of things, where you can just see the increased quality, it's not surprising whatsoever. This is basically like taking a Honda Civic against a Ferrari and expecting them to perform the same way. But on the Sega Saturn side of things, that Honda Civic has a turbocharged engine and at least can keep up. Now interestingly, just like Virtua Fighter, the intro is completely different. On the Sega Model 2, you get a fully 3D in-engine look with all these fun camera angles of the fights that you're going to be having when you actually play the game. And I really do love this about fighting games in the arcades. They give you this overall gameplay demo. Now on the Sega Saturn side of things, they've completely removed that and gone to full motion video, which makes total sense contextually for the era. Full motion video was huge, and they were able to do a pre-rendered intro. I definitely prefer the Model 2 original over the FMV, but you leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think. And before you ask why did I include footage of the Dead or Alive version on Xbox, that really isn't a port, it is a remake. So that would be Remake Authority, a series that I have not started yet. If you actually want to see something like that, leave me a comment down below, because I have been thinking about it, but honestly I'm right in the middle of Port Authority, so no time soon. And you'll see here again on Model 2, watch that bridge swing above the characters. It's moving at such a high frame rate and the animations look incredible. You'll see here when we come over to the Sega Saturn version of the game, that bridge is there, but it's absolutely stationary. It's no longer a 3D polygonal object, it is just a sprite that is laid in there. And that's maybe where on Dead or Alive you're going to see the biggest difference. Some of the objects that would be in the arcade version have been completely removed here on Sega Saturn, or they've been turned into 2D sprites or background objects, so it really doesn't interfere with keeping the game running at a frame rate, because it absolutely does run at an incredible speed. And this is the type of thing, is this beneficial for the arcade game or is it just an extra? You kind of have to consider that and decide what you think. Now speaking of deciding what you think, it's sound sample time now. First we're going to run the Sega Model 2 audio, then we're going to move over to the Sega Saturn, so listen and leave me a comment and you tell me, Model 2 or Saturn, which audio sounds better. Enjoy!
Ready? Fire! Ready?
In my opinion, it's a dead tie as far as the audio is concerned. There's a little bit more reverb on the Sega Saturn side of things, but both seem to be sampled at the same bit rate. Where when we did the Virtua Fighter 2 Port Authority, I said that the Sega Saturn audio, especially the sound samples, were a little bit more muffled and a lower bit rate compared to the arcade. That's not the case here. You might have a subjective winner, but honestly, I think either one could be a good choice. And as we move again to the Sega Model 2 footage here, I just love how good this game looks. It's absolutely spectacular in motion. I would say it's one of the prettiest fighting games of its generation, and obviously those jiggle physics definitely put a little bit of strain onto the overall platform, but it is one of those things, the game is known for it. But again, it is just such an impressive visual game on the Model 2. You even get some pseudo reflections in the buildings behind you, where here on Sega Saturn that is going to be lost. But the thing that isn't lost is the intent and theming. You know you're fighting on a highway downtown, you know there's high rises behind you, you can see absolutely everything here. But as we move back over to the Model 2 footage, don't so much pay attention to the fight, pay attention to that building behind you. Those clouds are moving as a reflection in real time. Obviously it's not a true reflection, this isn't ray tracing. It is just a trick, but it's a trick that Sega Model 2 could pull off that Dead or Alive on Sega Saturn could not. And that's why the more you watch the Dead or Alive footage, the more it really does come to life. Or pay attention here, Kasumi versus Bayman. Look out of that hangar door. It is just a mountain range in the background with a little bit of grass. And as we move over to the Model 2 version of the game, once the camera actually swings that way, you're going to see something different. But I'm just starting there to show you that little bit of a hook in the background swinging as well, something that's also missing from the Saturn side of things. But as we come in now, there's buildings behind that hangar door, and they do move in perspective with the camera because they are 3D polygonal objects. There's probably not many polygons on there because it is just a box, but it is a situation in which you're just going to see fundamentally more on the Dead or Alive side of things when you're playing on Sega Model 2. But let's do a side-by-side comparison just so you can really kind of ingest those big differences. Right out of that hangar door, you can see that not only is the aspect ratio different, but it just has a completely different view. Those mountains are definitely way more detailed than on the Model 2, so that's an area in which the Saturn actually beats it. And you can see at a certain angle, you can see that there's buildings back there. They just are going to be a 2D asset. But both look really good, and both are still the same incredibly fun game, and that's what really matters at the end of this. Is the Sega Saturn version any less fun than the Model 2 original? Absolutely not. They are the same great game, and I love them both. But when it comes to the overall visual aspect of the game, all of those minute details and everything else, the Model 2 version is always going to win. You'll see those banners blowing in the breeze in the background. We're fighting in this courtyard. The overall visual storytelling in Dead or Alive, I just absolutely love it. And again, don't get me wrong, I love Virtua Fighter 2, you know that, but I do think that Tecmo did a better job as far as world building in this game. I would say now, obviously, Dead or Alive still continues as a franchise where we haven't had a new Virtua Fighter game in a long time, but hopefully we do see one soon. But those banners in the background just add so much life to the overall Dead or Alive experience, and it's something that you're not going to see on the Sega Saturn. But you tell me down below, do those additions fundamentally increase your enjoyment of a game, or is it just a little bit of visual eye candy that you can do without if you don't actually want to pay much attention to what's going on in the background? Because obviously a fighting game is about fighting, not about looking at the background. That's how you die quickly. But taking a look at the last clip here on Model 2, this just looks incredible with that golden hour sunset in the background. The fighting is fun, the animations are great and fluid. As we move over to the Sega Saturn version of the game, that is all 100% intact, and at least for that background layer, it does look like a higher resolution. But this is Port Authority, and we do live in a quote-unquote perfect world where you can pick either version of the game to play today if you want to, and I do have to obviously give it to the Sega Model 2 original. It is just more detailed, it's a prettier game, but the Sega Saturn version is every bit as fun. But you leave me a comment down below and tell me, arcade or Sega Saturn, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.